thing.
Oh my God.
Okay, the second part of the day for the Constellation Training on Sunday. Okay, so how's everyone doing? First off,
Good.
how was lunch? Did you ate a Cliff Bar again or and did you get a coffee this time?
I did. Gaylord.
Yeah, it's a
It's
fun little
such a
neighborhood
fun
place.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like people watch. Like,
Yeah.
Different crowd here.
It's a good alternative to the chains.
Yeah.
Which are also there. Any thoughts or questions following the work we did this morning?
No, I've been thinking about what I want to do, so I'm already
Okay,
good.
Yeah. Good, because that's what we're doing next.
Yeah.
Okay. So shall we dive in? Okay. Okay, so let me just say a word about the interview I'm about to do. I'm going to try and model, I'm going to have to adapt to what shows up, but I'm going to try and demonstrate, the most comprehensive version of a constellation, and of an interview for a constellation, excuse me. And for me, there really is a part A, part B version of an interview. There's clarifying the issue, which sometimes they say it and it's good enough. I don't need to ask anything more. I don't need to get any more information about it. I don't need to help them refine it. I want to lose 50 pounds. Great. Okay. So that's part A. And then I really do announce, okay, we're going to shift you, because the first one feels more like a conversation. It feels a little more therapeutic. There's a little bit more of exploring the meanings together. Yeah. And then the second part is different. And I really want the client to understand that the second part is going to be different. Mostly so I can get time cooperation from them. And I'll try and model that with you. But I just want to let you know that they're basically these two parts to the interview. And then sometimes if I feel that the information I got either changes the way I'm looking at the issue, or I wasn't 100% satisfied with the articulation of the issue, at the end I may go back and do a little bit more refining of it, just in case. Because sometimes a person has a hard time getting a hold of their issue.
Yeah.
And sometimes the interview actually makes it clear what I need to ask to help refine it. So I don't know if that'll happen here or not, but I just want to let you know. But in that way, that's just a helpful structure. Part A, part B. And if you need to, you can revisit part A at the end if you feel like you need to. Okay? Okay. And I will show you how I take notes. So put the name and the date. Any guess? 17th? Excellent. Okay. And then at the top, I put the issue. I just say that word. So, and then what I'll do is like I put the issue up here, and then I'll do the tree here. And then sometimes on the bottom, I'll put just some biographical stuff that might not be on the tree so much, like works at IBM or something like that, if it seems important. Okay. Okay. So, what are we looking at today?
Okay, so I really want to look at this. That it came up a little bit yesterday when we did. That was quite profound for me because we're like, oh, there's a part of me that I lost, and I totally felt that way.
Yeah.
So I feel like the constellation, I want to relate it to that, but I feel like it's related to being a new mom and having this and not being able to be myself in this new role that I am. So that part of me is lost, basically, who I was before giving birth.
And I will try and capture the words as precisely as I can.
Okay.
Because then I'm going to come back to it regularly. And not only does that serve the process, but it deepens rapport, right?
Okay.
To use your words.
You use the words.
So lost a part of yourself, not able to be yourself. Do you have any name for that part? I mean, is it like my creative self or my independent self, or is there anything you're saying about it? Or what do you notice about it that you feel that you've lost? What is
I
the part?
notice that I'm missing it, and I don't feel as myself. I don't feel well, like I don't feel great. I feel heavy, like I feel heavier, like kind of metaphor that came like handcuff.
Okay.
Kind of like not as free. I don't know if it's independence, but freedom, openness, kind of even peace. Just going with the flow. It's becoming much less confined.
Okay. So can you give me, at this point, I'm just sharing with you, Irina has shared with me like a set of meanings and interpretations. I actually don't know what that means in terms of her day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
And I need a snippet. And some people will it'll be really hard to get like, okay, what do you mean? It's like, does this mean people are yelling at you at work? Or so like, can you give me something concrete? And it can take a while to get something concrete, because here in California, we're like, our interpretation of our experience feels prior to our actual experience.
Yeah.
We also think that people like us don't want to hear the experience, like the story.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, but I tend to go big picture versus like.
So, but I actually really want to know concretely, like at least an example. So, caring for your, by the way, I don't know, daughter, son? Daughter, good. What's your daughter's name?
Diana. Oh, like Diana.
Is there any, like, you were diapering her and you felt something, or you saw something on TV and you realized you were missing something?
It's kind of, I realized that I'm missing something when we did the constellation. So before that, I'm so in a, I wake up and she's already awake. I need to change her. I need to feed her. And it's so it goes all day.
Right.
Attending to her needs.
Of course.
And before, I would wake up and I would meditate and I would like, like set an intention. It's just much more focused on me, but it's also like, I wonder what today's gonna bring. I felt like connected and good.
When did you notice something that you call heaviness or not having peace?
Maybe a month. I've noticed something right away because I was paranoid that something will happen to her.
Which I think is kind of normal.
Yeah. I think the degree I was having it, maybe I talked to other moms and not all moms had it.
Okay.
Actually, some moms just said, I don't know what you're talking about. And some said, I had something with that. Maybe it's extreme because I was like constantly checking on her, like, is she breathing? Is she like, is she gonna, sit? Is she like constantly feeling like something's gonna happen to her, not able to like go to the shower? So to the extreme, even if I know she's with her dad and she's fine, she has food and she has care, I would still be not able to relax. Okay. I would still be like, no, I need to be there. I need to make sure she's safe. I need to. She didn't feel good.
And then it shifted.
It shifted a little bit. I actually did some work around it, and it. So my dad lost his son. My brother, he was already adult, but still it's a loss of a child. I felt it's the same pattern, like the same feeling.
And then you noticed this heaviness?
Yeah, and then it just, so with that came already heaviness because I was constantly living in fear, and I was just like, oh my God, this fear is intense. so with that, I already felt heavy, and then I felt like I couldn't do anything. Couldn't go anywhere, like couldn't. Well, and it's to the point true. But even if I left, I still was like, is she okay?
Right.
To go into.
Yeah. And that's not going on now.
It's better
you
now.
You can go get a coffee or be here.
Yeah. So even here, like last day, like yesterday, it was still, it was like I didn't think about it the whole day. It was great. I was totally disconnected. But as I was driving, I started feeling guilty because my husband texted me saying that she's been crying. And so it's like this whole, she's been crying, maybe she's missing me. I went for a whole day, maybe it's like, I shouldn't have done it. Is she crying? Because it's totally went to this guilt thing. And it just felt heavy. And like it was this.
So does that feel connected to the not able to be myself? That guilt at being separated and worry for her, is that connected to not being able to be myself?
Yeah, because before I was able to be very carefree, very trusting, like kind of like trusting, the universe, whatever. I'm like a meditative regular, so I felt very peaceful.
Okay. So the worry, and the guilt itself feels like you've lost some important part of yourself, some trusting part of yourself.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Trusting,
carefree part.
Trusting, peaceful comes to mind as well.
Okay. That's really helpful. Okay. And what you would like instead is what?
So I would like to be that in my new role, peaceful, trusting, and also another part that I lost, I felt, is before I had her, I worked so much on like loving myself. That was like my thing. Being self-critical. Well, kind of part of being guilty is like the self-criticism. Like, oh, you shouldn't have left her, blah blah blah. And so I seemed like I was in a good place with that, and now I still, and the guilt is back, so I don't feel as loving towards myself. I'm kind of punishing myself a lot for not being a good mom or whatever. So that's also
okay.
Relates to being peaceful.
Okay. So one of the things that I sometimes do with my clients when I'm doing the interview on the phone is, if it seems useful, I might do a little teaching. So I'm feeling like a little teaching wants to happen here.
Okay.
This is not a formal part of the interview, and it may not be your thing, but this would be normal for me to do. Even if it was a really quick interview in front of a group, if there's a short teaching that seems useful, I might offer it. And this is also helpful to you as well. So there's a notion that Bert Hellinger has with respect to this issue that you're talking about. Thank you for all of that, by the way. Called weight. Now, we have this notion of weight, but he really refined it. Weight is something that people have more or less of. There's no wrong amount of weight. It's whatever the weight you have. And you mostly get more of it by being on the planet longer. That's the main way. The more you have experience in life, you get more weight. So it's not wrong for a 2-year-old to not have much weight. They don't have much experience yet. Yeah. But there are other ways to get weight. So people who are of the same age can be weighted differently. Suffering gives you more weight. Being responsible for the lives of others, like emergency workers or firefighters or doctors, you get more weight. Working with the earth, apparently, and with your hands gives you more weight. And being a parent gives you more weight, particularly being a mother, more so than being a father, but definitely being a father as well. This is a change for people. So like all of a sudden get this upgrade. It's not the right word to use it, but now I'm a mother, and there's
Mm-hmm.
this new experience of like weight. Now, here's the thing: there's no right or wrong weight.
Right.
You know, that if you met a friend, same age, doesn't have a child, didn't suffer much, has less weight than you, there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
In life, though, what's important is to be in our proper weight
Mm-hmm.
and not try to be more and not try to be less.
Mm-hmm.
When we interact with people who are under or overweighted, we tend to feel off with them somehow, in some way. This is the challenge that young teachers have in trying to manage classrooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have much weight yet. Everybody knows it. Everyone can feel it. And they haven't been given the additional skills they need. Skills are separate from weight to manage a situation for which they don't have much weight. And so what do? They try to overweight themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's understandable,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Can I act in a way?
Yeah. Let's try to be more. And sometimes we show up as underweighting ourselves. This is safety patterning. A lot of it gets generated in childhood. Different situations we can overweight ourselves, in other situations we can underweight ourselves. In other situations we're almost always in our proper weight. So for instance, a skill we're really good at, we feel confident with, we're almost always at our proper weight because we don't have that self-consciousness or worry about showing up properly. So in this work, I'm almost always in my proper weight. But in other places, like if I start to date someone, oh, God help me. Right? Or with my brother, it might be. So at any rate, one of the things that I'm inviting you, by the way, this is just an issue that Bert Hellinger talks about. So as facilitators, it's just another thing to kind of have on your radar, the functioning of weight, yeah, and the proper weight that people are supposed to have, and the proper weight we're supposed to have as facilitators. But as I hear you talk about being a new mom, I'm asking myself questions about whether struggling with weight is part of what's going on here, right?
Added weight
for you. Yeah, you just got a lot more weight, yeah, and that's proper to you, and it's part of your dignity now. Yeah? But if we've been used to a lot less weight and we got really comfortable with that, it's like literally trying to carry baggage around all day that we haven't built up the muscles for, in a way. Sort of who put me in charge of the baby? What idiot put me in charge of a baby? It's like, oh, you're the mom, you're pregnant for 9 months. No. There's a mistake has been made. That's certainly the way I feel, right? So that's one thing I'm chewing on here with you. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears. So that's just a little teaching I might do, and the person can say, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And it begins to do some reframing. So if you have a teaching that isn't out of rapport and isn't weird and is in alignment with what you guys are up to, then by all means include it. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears now. I'm going to role model this shifting of gears. Now I'm going to interview you about your family tree, and I'm going to be drawing an actual picture. So in order to draw the picture, my apologies, I'm going to be very directive, including I might interrupt you from time to time just so that I can draw the picture right.
Okay.
So if you're speaking, it will really help me out. Instead of referring to your grandmother, can you say your mother's mother or your father's mother, so I know where to put it. I'm really not, because constellations is sometimes about helping us get a new story, new understanding about how things got the way they were or the way they are. I'm not going to be asking you a lot about your theories about how people got the way they were so much, because we're going to be looking for an unexpected version of events. I am, however, very interested in the major traumas, not so much your mom was depressed because she couldn't go to college, which was important, but we're in a different space here with what we do. So the major traumas and events, and I'll take you through that, and I'll ask you questions. Okay? Okay. And again, my apologies if I end up interrupting you in any way. And mostly I don't need names of people. So my first question is just, and so this is role modeling. I really have a structured way of doing this so that I can build the tree, which means I'm going to get some information I'm not going to need, but it just helps me have the tree. So where are you in your sibling lineup, specifically children who are children of the same two parents? So for a moment, not half siblings.
Okay. I'm the youngest of two.
Okay, and the eldest is a boy or a girl?
Girl.
And to your knowledge, do you have any lost siblings due to abortion, miscarriage, or died young?
My mom had 2 abortions after me.
After you?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any half siblings?
My brother.
Okay, so we'll get to that in 1 second. Your father, where is he in his sibling lineup, to your knowledge?
He had 6 kids, and he was 4th, I think.
4th of 6. Yeah. Once they get to be that much, I don't worry about getting all the
the
boys and girls and everything. If there's 3, I might get, And any lost siblings due to miscarriage, abortion, or died young, to your knowledge? Okay. And your mother, where is she in hers?
She is middle. She has older brother and a younger sister.
Okay. And does she have any lost siblings, to your knowledge? Okay. And then you have a brother on your mother's side or your father's side?
My father's side.
Remarried, earlier marriage?
Earlier marriage.
Okay. Ended in divorce?
Divorce, yes. And he's deceased, my brother.
That's right, you said that. How did he die?
A suicide.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's poor.
He was, we were not sure, some kind of psychotic stuff. So he heard voices telling him to do it.
And how did he do it?
Jumped from the window 9th floor. From his home apartment.
Did he have children?
No.
How old was he?
I think 26, maybe 20s.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 14. 14.
Did he kind of lose his father as a result of this divorce?
Yeah, he moved away to be with my mom.
Okay.
From Russia to Belarus.
Oh, so moved countries.
Moved countries, yeah.
Okay.
I was USSR, but
still, yeah.
Far.
Okay. Your parents stayed married?
Yes.
They still alive? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and my dad has had an affair where about 14 years ago, and which ended up in 2 children, twins.
Where does it land in the sibling lineup?
They are the youngest.
The youngest.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where it starts getting hard. You're like,
yeah, I
know. Boys, girls?
Girls. 2 girls. 2 twins.
Okay, so you are 3rd of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I'm not the youngest anymore.
Yeah. And do they have any relationship with their father? What's their situation in the family?
He's still caring for them.
He does?
He does, yeah. So he's very much involved. He works away, so when he comes back a month, he's basically with them, providing for them. Providing separately, like lives with them, takes them to our summer home.
But he's still married to your mother.
Yeah, but yeah,
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Okay, wow. Okay, got it. And do you have a relationship with them?
I do not. They are in Belarus, so, and I haven't been back since 2012. I did see them once.
Skype, emails?
Yeah, no,
okay.
it's hard because maybe soon.
Okay. How old are they?
They are 13 or 14.
Oh, they're young.
They're young, yeah.
They're young.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So ethnically, both of your parents are Russian?
Mm-hmm.
So this would be the stage, I don't need to do this, but in the United States, I would ask, what's the immigrant story?
Mm-hmm.
How long back did they come? Was it a trauma?
Mm-hmm.
Is it recent? Were they escaping war? Things like that. But I kind of don't need to do that because you're the immigrant.
Yeah. First generation.
And I got that story yesterday that you came here as an exchange student and stayed. And then first marriage, first pregnancy for you, this one?
This is my second marriage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's my second pregnancy. I had one last year and it was abnormal pregnancy. It was a molar pregnancy. It's a weird condition where the cell's growing, but there's no fetus. Some kind of genetic abnormality.
So you had a medical abortion?
Yeah.
But in some ways, it almost wasn't a person.
Yeah,
in a funny
weird.
way.
Yeah, it's like cell growth. It's like a tumor. It's weird, yeah.
It's interesting.
I struggled so much. I'm like, is it a person? Was there like a soul, or was there like a feeling? It didn't seem like there was, but maybe it didn't seem like there was anybody there.
What was the experience for you and your husband of having the medical abortion? Was there grief? Was there upset?
Yeah, traumatic.
Yeah. So we were in the space of alternative lives. You already saw that life. Right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, there was one, even if there wasn't one here.
I see, yes.
Yeah. There was a way in which you and your husband were visioning and seeing the life that could and would come from this.
Right, in that sense, yes.
Yeah. Which is why you had grief.
Right. Yeah.
So in that sense, that one exists somewhere.
Yes.
If not in this plane, in a plane.
I get, yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
No. Again, it just normalizes all of your worry.
Yeah.
It's really understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, something did happen.
Something really did happen. Yeah, it wasn't in your head.
Yeah.
Stuff does happen.
Yeah.
And it's only a lot of denial that gets anybody through being a parent.
Yeah.
It's not like over worrying, because terrible things can happen all the time. It's turning it off enough to be functional and well and not be a maniac.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
Yeah.
You can't be a worry wart all the time.
No.
But it's not because there's anything to worry about.
Yeah.
That's the story that makes people kind of nuts. Wait. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. They go wrong all the time. It's a little baby. It totally fucking depends on me for everything. I could drop it. Right? Yeah. This is part of why it gives you weight.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're stepping into something really big, the life of another human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, to be alive is to be guilty. Instead of saying, oh, nothing's going to happen, why do you worry so much? It's to say, wow, how do we step into the dignity and the inherent chanciness of life?
Mm-hmm.
And then not always be tearing out our heads about it, because we can't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go through what I consider kind of a checklist, sort of.
Okay.
And you can write this down with me. If this applies to anyone in your family, you just let me know, including yourself or your immediate family. We're not too interested in like cousins, too far afield.
Okay.
More direct, unless something with a cousin was really big and important in some way. But sometimes people start like, well, my cousin had a baby. I'm like, no, too far off.
Okay.
Okay. So anyone in addition to your brother committed suicide?
My father's father.
And what happened there?
He hanged himself.
Was there a story, like financial loss? He was going crazy?
I think the war. He was in the war, and he either had PTSD or he never got over it, like the war and something there.
So he was on the Russian front?
Yeah.
That was not good.
Yeah. And he came back from war, and he worked really hard to provide for all 6 kids. And then as soon as his oldest grew up, she was 18, he committed suicide.
His oldest or his youngest?
His youngest.
Youngest, right.
So
right.
as soon as they all left, he basically said it.
Yeah. Wow. I have to imagine you've done your World War II constellations, right?
Different modalities with constellations.
Oh, you haven't received one?
I have, yeah.
I figured you were referring to what, Elena?
Yeah.
Or, yeah. I'm sure, like, World War II constellations are kind of her stock and trade. Yeah. Elena Veselago is a very famous Russian facilitator.
She came last year.
Okay. Anyone else suicides?
No.
Homicides, murders, or murderers?
Its great grandfather was murdered, so I don't know if it's too far.
Can you just mother's, father's?
Mother's grandfather.
Mother's father, or mother's father's father?
Mother's father's father.
So he was murdered?
Yeah.
Circumstances?
It was a revolution time, and he was on the communist side, and he was the one who's taking property from people. And he was a head of a local government office, and one day horse brought him, and he was unconscious. People thought that whoever he was taking property from.
Interesting history.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's get into it. People who are involved, in addition to what you've already said, you don't need to repeat them, but in war, the revolution, violence, that sort of stuff, including anybody who just was like present for bombings or.
That's all. Both sets of grandparents were in both grandfathers were in the war, and grandmothers were. Mother's mom was on a territory that was occupied by Germans, and father's mom was in Siberia that wasn't occupied.
So, generally safe and well World War II for her?
Safety-wise, but not resource-wise. There was
so some impoverishment.
Impoverishment, yeah.
Okay.
Not to the starvation.
Yeah.
But.
And she was there temporarily, or was that her home?
That's where they lived.
That was their home. Okay. Any other war stuff, revolution stuff?
No.
Do you know of anyone in this great grandparent era who lost everything in the revolution or gained by the revolution?
I don't know. There's my own theories, but not like the facts.
I'll take your theory.
It's on my dad's side. He has some gypsies or some wealth that was lost in his side. Maybe 2/3. Maybe it was revolution time. Yeah.
Okay. And you're 100% Orthodox Russian. There's no Jewish?
No Jewish.
Okay. Okay. I'm doing stuff I might not otherwise need to do, but money, great wealth loss, what you just said, money gained improperly, that could be your great grandfather.
Yeah, the great grandfather.
And or poverty, other than what you've already mentioned.
Yeah, mother's side, like a lot of peasants, and great parents, it's very farmers, very simple life.
Okay.
Poverty. It was normal in a sense, but to us right now, it's impoverished. Yeah.
Other than what you've mentioned, children who died young?
Mm-mm.
Parents who died when the children were young?
Mm-mm.
So there's a longer list I could go down. Lost loves, betrayals between loves, closeted homosexuality. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff you can keep on asking about. These are the big. Oh, I did miss. Except for your brother and your grandfather, mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenia, big stuff.
Yeah, only brother had some like psychotic schizophrenia stuff.
Addictions.
Alcohol. Both grandfathers, alcohol. My mom's grandfather even died from cirrhosis of liver. So my dad drinks. Functional, but considered addiction.
Okay, so I want to be with this for a second. So in terms of your relationship with your daughter, and the fact that you had a pregnancy that didn't pan out, this was a much wanted child, right?
Yeah.
Do you want more?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you worried that somehow this thing you're experiencing with your identity is going to interfere with that in some way, or?
No, I don't think it's going to get any worse with having another child. I know why it's hard to have something.
Okay.
I think it's going to it's an issue I would have one or two or three.
Okay. And what happened with the first relationship that you got a divorce, the first marriage?
Just didn't work. I was young, I was 19. A couple years later, I realized it's not. It was a language barrier at first, so we got along great when I didn't speak English.
Okay.
And then I got, I grew and he didn't, because I learned English and went to school and went out of school.
No pregnancies with him?
No pregnancies, yeah.
So at this point, I wouldn't do this with a client. Sometimes I do a little bit of it, but I'll do it with you guys. Just what I'm noticing in terms of patterns. So the first one is the one that I've already mentioned, which is that you have a right to be frightened. And that there's maybe something unresolved about the previous pregnancy that we might want to just check into. The second thing is when I hear a parent talk in this way about worry or fear, I wonder, where are the places where there's worry or fear? and there are several candidates for this, right, in your system. War. Parents, the energy of parents worrying for their children in war. Right? It's a big one. So there's a way in which I wonder if, you're entangled with fears of dangers that are not yours, that were your ancestors. So that's the second sort of thing I'm looking at. And then the third thing is this thing with weight. The challenges of the dignity and weight of becoming a parent. And again, how much our culture sucks at supporting parents through that process. But also curious, so that might sound like not about ancestral stuff, and that's possible. But curious about whether there's places where that was a difficult process for parents. I do look at your father, who seems to have children a little willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Like if it's feeling too heavy for you, it almost seems like it's not heavy enough for him.
Yes. For my mom, it's also very heavy.
Yeah, because she has somebody who's not feeling it as heavily as they ought to, right? So these are not like, they don't tell me what to do next, but these are just things that are coming through as I start to look at your interview. So do I focus on you, on your child and your previous pregnancy? Do I take a look at your father and mother? Or do I look at some of these other situations and experiences of danger and the family tree? Now, the fact that you've done some of the World War II work suggests to me, generally speaking, when someone tells me flat out they've done a constellation on this thing in their family, I will almost never go back and redo that bit. It's out of respect to a fellow facilitator, but also respect to the family tree, the family and the field, that we're not going back and continuously poking at something. Like at some point I want to say what was available to shift about that has been, yeah.
So with Yelena, it's actually we didn't do that. We did other stuff, not World War II. We worked with my mom.
Oh, okay.
I was pregnant at the time, and we worked more with motherhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she didn't work with that. Okay.
So it just didn't show up.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. But
even though it showed up in every other one that we did that day, it didn't show up in mine.
Okay. And you guys understand the argument about not necessarily going back to the same thing. And there have been exceptions to this. Sometimes you come to the same events, but from a real different angle. And that seems useful. But it's something I just try to be careful about. Because there are people who have something big in their family tree, and there's a temptation to keep going back to it. When they haven't actually received and taken in what actually was already looked at and worked on.
Does that indicate that it didn't get resolved?
Yes, in a sense. There's something about picking at a scab and not letting it heal. Yeah. So is it that we didn't do what we needed for the wound, or is it I'm still scratching at the scab?
Yeah, but the scab's supposed to go away after a while.
Yeah, but not if I keep scratching at it, right?
Let it.
There are situations where people have ongoing sores because they can't leave it alone long enough for it to heal. I have a client. She's a lovely woman. This comes back to interrupted reach, the ability to receive. She has a lot of constellations done that are really amazing, and she doesn't let any of them set. And she doesn't really receive. What I really want to do is a constellation with her about receiving. It's really what I want to do. But it's some people, the sort of ability to be self-aware about these sorts of things is tricky. When I start to have a client, and I went through a phase myself, we all go through phases where we want to get a lot of healing. And we go out and we get a lot of healing work, right? And I've done this. And what I've noticed, there's a point where I will sometimes say to clients, I think you need to wait I'm 6 months before your next one. And the reason is that, again, engineering, if you don't let the cement set, the house is not going to be stable. What happens is that you do a piece of work, something really nice happens, but it needs some integration time. And if you start digging things up again with a new thing, the first thing doesn't settle. Nothing actually gets done. It just keeps on getting picked up again and picked up again and picked up again. And so the need to keep going back to a particular thing and heal it, for me, is less about the thing that's needing healing than it is about what is this pattern around incompleteness, and not allowing things to finish. And again, that's almost always an attachment thing, right? It's the same thing with people who they get in relationships, and just when it's settling down and getting solid, they find some reason to blow up the relationship, right? And they do that every, at a year and a half in the relationship, because now it's starting to settle. I might actually be getting what I want. So, yes, the issue is not resolved, but it's not necessarily going to be resolved by going back and doing this exact same thing over and over and over again, I guess.
Right, but it sort of uncovers maybe a different issue. Why do you keep picking at that?
Right, and that would what I mean is going back to the same, let's for the fourth time deal with your grandfather who committed suicide by hanging. There's a point where we're getting disrespectful to the grandfather. And to the family and to the field. Maybe there's something else we need to look at.
Done work around that other modality.
Well, and that actually for me does not disqualify doing it in constellations work.
I see.
Yeah, because it's such a different approach.
I see.
Okay, so. Do people need a pee break before we launch into a constellation? How you all doing? I mean, it's not like if we start to need to pee we can't pause.
Yeah.
We can always pause. But are we ready to move into this, you think?
I would like a break just to
Yeah. We've been doing this for a little bit. Yeah. I still need to figure out what I want to do, because I'm not sure. I get so thirsty in here. Why?
If you start with one constellation, with like one setup, like in case you have a few theories, it's already you. Can you change it later, or you already kind of?
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's not like you.
Yeah, you got to live with this forever.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a commitment, though.
Yeah.
Because something's going to show up when you put those characters in, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And mostly what I'm noticing is not so much a theory, and that if you could close that, thanks, as where does my attention go
Mm-hmm. Oh,
in
charge,
terms
yeah.
of the information that I have?
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of deciding what to do first, and mostly go with, there's a few different ways I do it, but one is what I say to myself is, Leslie, don't be stupid, do the obvious one, especially a new client. Just do the obvious thing. It's the grandfather. Come on. Don't second guess yourself. That's usually the right thing to do.
Uh-huh.
With some clients, there is no obvious thing. There really isn't. There just isn't. There's nothing
Right.
staring out from the tree that's obvious. Or you work with them enough that the obvious things have kind of been looked at.
Right.
And so at that point, it really is, I go with the thing that's pulling me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that means, right?
Yeah.
And, other people are going to think of it different ways. They're going to think of it, I have a feeling in my body, or I have an intellectual theory.
Yeah.
Whatever your strengths are.
Or, for me, it's like charge or more energy. There's kind of.
For me, it's attention.
Attention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more of it. There's a more, but I mean, it's just something that's more of a gravity pull.
Yeah. So, yeah.
This feels like a bigger planet, however we put it. Okay, so here's what I would like to do. You're going to represent yourself.
Okay.
Jeff, would it be okay if you represented Arena's daughter, Deanna?
Yes.
Yeah, you're very representative, right? So both of you stand up. Could you just do the formal on his shoulder that this is your daughter, Deanna? And then I'll just invite you guys to find your place in the space. Sort of over here somewhere. A little bit more in. We'll see what happens. Marina, how are you? Remember, you're in your role.
Mm-hmm.
You almost forget that you're you, although that's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. Just my attention is immediately there. Like, share case, checking in. Basically, like, I would want to even come close and, like, you know, but I feel there's some distance, asking for distance from her.
Okay. And Deanna's representative, how are you? So far.
I'm not getting anything.
She's only 4 months old after all, right?
It's like,
So when you look at your mother, what happens?
I recognize.
Yeah.
Feels kind of good. Not, huge good, but
Do you recognize what your mother said about feeling like you need a little distance? Or does that not register for you? So would it matter to you if she comes closer or not?
it'll be okay.
Yeah. And I do understand. Deanna's a little tiny girl. This is a big man.
They do have similar heads.
Okay.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Well, baby heads are funny. They just are. So far, so good for the two of you. I mean, it seems like there's a little self-consciousness over here, but it's not out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, what's the right distance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to sense what she needs.
Yeah. And anything additional for you, Deanna, before we bring in something else?
Just kind of tracking her. I don't need anything at the moment.
Mm-hmm. How does that sentence make you feel? I don't need anything at the moment.
I'm like, no, you're hungry. You need something. You always need something.
No,
What?
there are those 15-minute gaps. When I don't.
Well, and it's really interesting. What I'm noticing here is two different meanings of the word need. Of course, a baby needs kind of all the time.
Yeah.
In terms of changing a diaper, or being fed, or being cuddled, or whatever. But there's another more charged meaning of the word need. And maybe our children don't always need that we're trying to track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Making sure she's emotionally okay.
It's bigger than that. That goes into the regular kinds of needs. It's worry about whether we're needed. It's a different thing. It's a different thing. It's a different projection that really shouldn't have a place in the relationship between parents and kids in a way. And it's probably more about you and your parents. Need. It's got a different need. But you need me? No, do you need me? And it's like, yeah, I need you, Mom. I do. Like, I need you. Yeah, I need you. Okay, so
I just feel secure.
You feel fine.
There's nothing.
Can you just say, Mom, I feel fine?
Wow, okay.
No, you need something. Good. Okay, so this is already helpful for you.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the first pregnancy. I'm gonna call it the child you and your husband imagined, in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to be agnostic about the whole thing, what was actually inside of your thing. It's the meaning in your system.
Okay.
Feel giggly and a little playful, like I'm doing a very cool hide and seek. The way kids, it's so much fun playing peekaboo with kids. Of a certain age, she's not old enough for peekaboo yet. I'm feeling like I'm playing a really smart trick. And my parents haven't figured it out yet. That makes me feel very clever. And it's so fun. It's like I feel like my creator self, in a very childlike way. For some reason, I'm hiding behind my younger sister. I'm sneaking behind her, and that's the way I'm going to trick you. I feel a little bit like she's my ally on this trick. She's going to help me do the trick. How does that feel to you?
To Jeff or to me?
To Deanna and then to you.
Yeah, okay with it. It doesn't feel really strong. I do am aware.
Can you say, I see you, big sister?
I see you, big sister.
Part of me is like, rats, I didn't trick her. But the other part is, I'm really glad. That's really nice. That you see me. And for you, how's this so far?
The connection that you guys have was good.
Do you see this one? So Leslie doesn't mind you looking at her, but this one's like, I gotta play the game. It really does. It feels so much better when I'm a little blocked by my sister.
Yeah, it does to me too.
Okay, so that's really important.
Another thing just came to me about, I'm secure. I don't need anything done to me right at this moment. And I'm aware of you, but there's all kinds of interesting stuff out there I've never seen before. I kind of want to keep you in the periphery, but I also want to look at this stuff here.
Well, what's really interesting is showing up. I don't know if this is coming through for you, but you're seeing this one through Deanna. There's this way in which Deanna is the mediating vehicle for this one's presence or non-presence, which is not fair to Deanna. Right? But she doesn't mind too much, but I think my guess is this is part of what is confusing you right now. And eventually it'll confuse Deanna. Right? Right now she actually seems fine. She's not in the confusion. Right? But eventually, if we don't work this out, it could. So that's the main thing. Given that at this point this is my focus, I'm going to bring in your husband too, because we need both the parents of these kids to make this complete. What's his name?
Pavel.
Pavel?
People in American future.
They do?
Pavel? Pavel?
The first thing I see is both my kids, especially see Deanna. Totally adore her. Although I am registering a little bit more than usual, that she's being represented by a man. I think I want a son. More than maybe I admit. But I adore her. I really, really adore her. I have a lot of attention on her. It also really, this feels like a her to me as well. And I feel they both feel automatically like my children. Maybe this is the living one and this is the non-living one. I feel them both. You're a little peripheral, I'm sorry to say. What's your experience with Pavel?
I feel like some weight is distributed more evenly. It's not just on me. It's like, okay, I can relax a little. You can look for needs as well. I don't need to
be. My response is, I'm not sure why you ever had confusion about that. Like, this one so presupposes that this is, I feel like totally parenthood here in a totally congruent way. Really confused that you would wonder about that. How do you react to the little bit of the feeling of like he maybe doesn't fully see you, or you're a little marginal or something? What happens when this one says that? No reaction?
No, I'm okay with it. I mean, she's so little. I feel like.
Okay.
I'm also more focused on you. Aware, but
In constellations, actually.
I know. Well, that's.
So it's an interesting thing that it doesn't bother you.
I know they share a special connection. I felt that.
So you have a strong feeling with your father. I'm just gonna call him here, see how this goes. Oh, I need to do the trick with him too. Uh-oh, how do I do it for both of them? I need to do both of them. I can't because you're not in the same line.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's really frustrating. With him, it's actually a little bit more shyness, actually. It feels like play with you. And it feels like, and it's interesting that Pavel sees this one more than you do. Any changes for you, Deanna? What are you noticing this way in which you're
I'm aware
blocking?
of that.
You're the thing that she wants to hide behind. Are you aware of that?
Slightly, but it's okay.
It's okay. How are you doing generally, Arena?
Good. I'm more aware that I want to be closer to him.
Yeah, you can move.
Okay. Here.
Okay. So as Leslie, would you be willing to try an experiment? Would you be willing to try the other side?
Over there?
Now I see you. There's a big difference in it. Usually the man is on the right-hand side.
Okay.
That was a little uncomfortable
There are exceptions, but it's almost always, and if you forget, it's the sword hand. It just seemed to have noticed that there's an energy of the woman on the left and the man on the right. It's a little sexist, but it does seem like there seems to be an order. How do you feel over here, both with respect to Pavel and with respect to everything else?
Good. More protected in a way. Keep protecting.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me happy when you say that.
I don't want you to be close to me.
For some reason, the closeness thing to me feels like more in her hands. I don't know why. Like I feel 100% available for anything, but for some reason I can't make either move. Like for some reason I need to leave you with freedom, choice, or something. Like I'm here. I'm totally here. I'm not gonna make you, which also means I'm not doing the approach. But I mean, I can do snugglies. I can do everything. I mean, I'm happy with anything. Yeah. It feels good to you. Check out this one. So we moved over there, which is good because I could walk over here. And now that you guys are arranged properly for some reason, you get this wave of sadness. Like it went from being a game to not being a game. And I want to say I wanted it too. Feel a little jealous of my younger sister. And I'm afraid of being forgotten. It's really interesting. There's that thing where a child will start a game, they'll initiate a game, and then the game, for whatever reason, doesn't go right. Either the parent doesn't play it right, or suddenly they realize they're jumping from too high of a height and they're getting hurt, or this thing that was supposed to be a game ends up not being a game. And it really does, in terms of what you described, like the development, the way it's showing up in the meaning of the constellation is like the child chose to do this as a game, a hide and seek game. And then went, oh, no, do over. There's no do over. I'm getting a little hostile. Me, not her. I don't think I'm going to stick with that game for very long, but I needed to try it.
The hospital's over. Not just her.
I'm not going to do this game for very long. It's not a very good game. I had to try it. What's going on for you?
When you moved, I saw you. And, yeah, I did forget about you.
Okay, so I'm going to go back for a moment. You say that, and then I'll move. I see you now.
I see you now, and I forgot about you.
It's funny. Now I feel like I'm doing the reveal, like I'm Vanna White. Look. Feels like it's that whole desire to block and replace is now like, okay, now I get to go. Da.
The way she is, if we had you, we wouldn't have her.
You would have had a baby eventually, but inevitably it would have been a different baby because it would have been a different egg.
Yeah, right. But the timing was that your due date is when she was conceived. Close.
Oh, that's a little heavy. How are you doing with that information? Is Leslie's question.
Really affect me.
What did you think about the reveal? Ta-da.
Not much reaction, although when you were in front of me, I really didn't like that.
Yeah.
I like you being here.
Yeah. Feels like there's an important tether or bond, particularly when you say the birth date of this one is the same as the conception date of that one. That's a meaning bond. It's really powerful. I want to say something like, I'm glad you have her, but I want you to have us both. Instead of either or, if you'd had me, you wouldn't have had her.
Yeah.
Or if you have her, you can't have me. I want you to have us. I'm just the one who didn't get born. Nothing wrong with that.
I know you're still there.
Like, literally, she would have felt the cell life of her sister. She's probably got some of this one's cells in her. They've done epigenetic studies on this stuff. The younger siblings literally have the cellular information of the previous ones in the womb. They're partly me. That makes me feel like the big. I feel like almost like we would start roughhousing a little bit, and I'd win a bit because I'm older, but it would mostly be kind of fun and loving and never get mean.
This feels good.
How does it feel to you? Step off.
Good. I see you. I want to say like I wanted you to.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that because there was no you two. There's
That's
never
right. There was no.
there's
choice.
never any choice of both alive.
Yeah.
So just say I have you.
I have you both. I have you both.
The one who wasn't born and the one who.
The one who wasn't born and the one who was.
In the living know that's a big deal, but as you say, you don't even know. For her, it's not a big distinction.
Yeah.
It's not for the living. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? Check a little bit. We have you both. I felt that immediately when I first stepped into it. So that hasn't really changed. And I've been a little charmed by the interactions. So my question as the facilitator is, has anything changed in your sense of your connection with your daughter since we've been doing this? Does anything feel different with Deanna? Because this is the primary relationship.
Yeah, it feels I'm not as focused on her as far as worrying about her needs. It's more like, okay, there's another child, there's my husband, it's more not as weighted on me.
How far along were you when the medical abortion was done?
11 weeks.
Not too far along.
Yeah.
But still, you said it was traumatic?
Yeah, just because we came, it was our first ultrasound, and we came thinking it's a baby because all the signs and like the pregnant, and we were looking at the monitor, and the doctor went, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a viable pregnancy." So it was like, when we already thought, like, go through.
Yeah, you've already plotted
boy or girl and name, yeah.
So can you look at her, this one next to Deanna, and say, it took no time for us to fall in love with you.
Yeah, it took no time for us to fall in love with you.
And we saw your whole life.
We saw your whole life.
We missed that.
We missed that.
And then look at Deanna and say, that's her life, not yours.
That's her life, not yours.
And you can say the same thing. We fell in love with you.
We fell in love with you right away.
And we saw your whole life.
And we saw your whole life.
And can you look at Pavel and just say, pointing at the first one, saying, with respect to seeing their whole lives, right? That's tricky. The experience of teeing up your child's whole life, which is inevitable, it's what we do. We get, someday I'll be, at the wedding, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You're getting ready for a life. And that's risky business. Yeah. But we do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So can you just say to Pavel, seeing their lives is risky.
Seeing their lives is risky.
And that's not their business. Right? Not their business, the weight of being a parent. Right? How is this for you?
There was this now I said that, and now I feel like seeing her life is risky, and I'm worried that something's gonna happen to her.
Yeah.
I was sensing that, and I was really thinking, don't overdo it. I need some freedom.
You need some, yeah. I'm thinking okay, now I'm imagining myself at the wedding, at her wedding. And what if something's gonna happen to her once in life because this already happened. And like,
This is good. This was going too calmly,
yeah.
given our interview.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we've kicked it up. This is
Yeah.
good. This is good. I'm glad. Because it was there to be kicked up.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I'm just really worrying that she's gonna die.
Say that to Pavel.
I'm afraid she's gonna die.
It would be my fault.
And it will be my fault.
You can have your hands over your ears going, la, 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 la.
Because I'm feeling I'm utterly responsible for her. So if anything happens to her, it's my fault.
It's interesting. He has the same sense of weight about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really want to protect and all this stuff. But it doesn't turn into that last bit of worry. Like, it doesn't bother him that he has that weight.
Yeah.
Could be my fault, but that's life. There's just something not willing to, like, he's in touch with the vulnerability of that
Mm-hmm.
without having anything to manage around it.
Mm-hmm.
It may make him a little bit too detached at times, but in terms of this, it's pretty useful. Yeah. Okay. And he's sorry for you that that's hard for you. He'd like it to be easier for you. You're a good mom. I can tell.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I want to do. Now that we've done this bit and we've kicked this up, so what I want to do is I'm going to shift the focus of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you step off of that. Deanna's still here. I think for now I'm going to have you be Pavel. And I'm just going to invite this role. No, not to leave. I'm just going to have the kids step aside a little bit.
Thinking of the brother suicide.
Well, that's interesting. Okay. So stand on Pavel. And I'm just going to come in. I'm just going to do this the way you've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going a little structural here, which is the part of you you're afraid you've lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's generating this worry and all that peacefulness and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pavel, do you want to stay there? Is there any move you want to make? And if you do, just pick up the card and take it with you. Let's see. Pavel, this is between me and her. I need you to step aside a little bit. Now, your role may say, screw it, I'm staying, or you may respond to that. Please follow the role. A little attitude about got a little attitude about you. I'm a little cranky with you. Kids are fine. I don't mean that in a dismissive way.
Yeah.
It really feels like I feel like they're fine. What happens for you is you see this quote unquote lost part of yourself.
I want to join you. I'm gonna be you.
I'm a little cranky. I'm like, I just want you to like get a spine. Come on. What the hell?
Why are you thinking about me?
Because I feel like you're being too small. And it feels like an assertion that doesn't feel real. So it makes me frustrated with you. And I don't know what I'm frustrated about you. Is it, I just feel like I want to say, don't get in the way or something. So let me step off. How is this for you so far?
I want to give her some space, but I also want to keep an eye on the situation.
How is it for you?
Good, like smiling next to you.
You do. Even despite the crankiness?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Cute.
That's good. I'm just going to check and see how Deanna feels about this. Watching your mom do this. That one scares me a little bit. And somehow I want to see your mom, my mom, not be bullied by it or something. I see my mom stick up for herself. Now, this is an aspect of my mom, but I feel like this is my mom and this is, it scares me a little bit. I'm nervous. How friendly are you with your side that can get angry?
Oh, it's a struggle. Yeah.
See, I'm wondering if there's a part of you you've split off
Uh-huh.
in order to make yourself feel like you're going to be a good mom. So you can never actually can be angry or resentful or pissed off or have a bad day. Yeah?
Yeah, all the above.
All the above? Yeah. This feels like her. Like, I don't want to be diplomatic. I don't want to be careful. I you know. And if it's the part of you that you've lost, then it is split off, and I understand why your daughter would be scared of it. Because this needs to be properly integrated in, right? Which I think is why Pavel a little bit, I don't want to get too far away. If we let the split happens too much, this is not good. Yeah. Actually, now I want to do a little tantrum. You have to stop laughing. So the other thing as a facilitator, what I notice is nothing about this stance communicates your weight, your proper weight. You're looking a little bit like a little girl. You know, sort of stuff. Yeah. So if I may, I'll just try, your hands by your sides, your feet on the ground. Does anything happen?
I grew a little.
Interesting, the word game keeps coming up. Let's see. play a game with you. But if you let me, I can give you strength. But I can't do it if it's a game. I know the word keeps, this one had the word game a lot. So now that you've done that, what I want to do is this. How's that for you?
I feel like you like my power or something. I feel like warm here, strength here in my core. Like,
Do you know what it's turning out to be, though?
when. Oh.
Remember we were talking about he didn't seem to have enough weight as a parent?
Yeah.
You were saying that.
Yeah.
There's something about this respecting and receiving what your father can give anyway.
So yeah, respecting and receiving what my father cannot give me.
Who can give you?
Can give me.
What he can give you.
Can.
Yeah. So, very frequently, we, because our parents are limited in whatever ways they're limited, we kind of turn off a little bit the energy that comes to our parents, like turning off the spigot so only a little drip can come in. And there's something about your mothering that needs you to say yes to your father's strength. And the way I think of it is as, you know, our parents have this energy to give us, and sometimes it's terrible energy. It can be abusive, whatever it is. But do you know what cheesecloth is? Yeah, cheesecloth, the finest kind of sieve. Imagine putting that in between your parent and you, so only the strength you really need can come through. And then you don't have to manage it or say no to it or say not too much or not too little or blah, 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 blah. You can just let it come in. And we all need to say yes to our mother's strength and to our father's strength. Right? And sometimes we need something to help our bodies feel like it's something we can actually take in freely. Right? So something we did here by talking about it as a part of yourself, and blah, 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 snuck in. You just immediately took this spot. Say, dear daughter, I did not have the proper weight as a parent. Still don't have it. But what strength I have, I give it to you. And you're right, being a parent isn't a game. I give you permission for it to be fun. And I was so glad to see him shift. Like, I really respect you. I respect your husband. See, he has some good strength. So how is that all for you? As he stays there? Then I'll check in.
So it did seem like it was a game for you, for Dad, and it wasn't serious.
Nathan. Yeah, when you're making babies, it should be serious, right?
And it was like, oh yeah.
But how does this feel now?
Like I feel I don't want to be that way. So I'm kind of.
What does it feel like right now?
Okay,
Show me how it feels right now.
good to have him behind me. Yeah.
So, say, dear Father, thank you for my life.
Thank you for my life.
Please bless me as I choose another way.
Please bless me as I choose another way of being a parent.
Of holding the weight of
upholding a weight of parenthood.
I do wish that for you. There's actually, what I'm noticing, there's actually a funny little suffering in not being able to take fathering seriously. Deserves a little bit of respect. There's a, you might say, well, you chose it and everything, but we understand that, whatever. So I take responsibility for it. I have had a loss. And there is a good effect. There's you and your sisters, and even your brother. I'm glad you're all there. And I miss your brother. I'd be delighted for you to have it. Thank you for being part of it. So, Mr. Buff, he's going to stay here. How's that for you?
Good. A lot of sadness to know.
Which is good.
Yeah.
You just say to your husband, I miss my brother.
It's like right here. I miss my brother.
I assume that happened way before Pablo, right? So just so she could know.
Wish you could have.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm just kind of watching the whole process. Feels good.
What's your brother's name?
Dimitri.
Dimitri. I actually feel pretty okay. Thank you for making me. Brother-in-law. And I kind of want to be special to her.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, sister. You're doing well. I'm glad for you. These are the formal sentences. Watch out for stepping on your father.
Mhm.
Dear Dimitri, I see the burden you carry.
Dimitri, I see the burden you carry. I'll be there with you. I see my father, and I'm glad he's No, that was me. That was me seeing it and feeling good. So let's just see how Deanna's doing. That's the main thing here. That's my grandpa. That needs an introduction. Can you say, dear Deanna, this is your uncle? Dear Diana, this is your uncle.
the little, like, makes me a little nervous because I'm only aware of the energy of aunts, right?
Yeah.
No uncles. This feels kind of new. I don't know about him. Such a boy. I'm pretty sure my father's hand. I like that. You seem to care about him a lot. Kind of not my thing though. I think I want him not to be quite so close. You know, like that. I would have always wanted to pinch your cheeks and stuff, you know. That's okay with me. I can feel I'm a little strong for you. Just be on this side for a little bit. Now, all of a sudden I realized this is not, these are your kids. I shouldn't be over there. That's not right. I'm the older brother. So I'm gonna be over here. And Leslie says, maybe this is something for another constellation. Not the relationship, the entanglement for you. I mean, we're already clearing it up more here, obviously, but I'm not sure we're gonna scoop up all the bits of that. And I don't sense it's actually relevant to what you're dealing with Deanna. It just showed up in all these relationships. How are you doing, Pavel? Doing pretty good? How are you doing?
Good.
Okay. So I'm gonna invite, we're gonna let these two be. You now have your father supporting you, letting that energy in. Got two kids over there. I'm gonna invite the two of you just to find the position with respect to those two that feels right.
Respect to kids.
I'm sorry?
With respect to kids?
Yeah. Because that's the primary thing you came for, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of over here. Just sort of you to be sort of in touch with your father's strength and your mother. Oh, so Pavel, how are you? Standing next to your wife, looking at the kids.
Feels right.
How's it feel to you, Arena?
Good. There's like a sense of warmth from my father. It's very warm, very hugging, and with a good, very good contact that's coming through him. And lightness to humor.
That's better. You know, I'm having a really nice time. In addition to feeling your father, I'm feeling all four of my grandparents. And that's feeling really good to me. Your parents. And it's true, like Jeff when he was in this role. Oh, out here. No, I'm from Winslow. You're right. The window's cool. There's stuff going on out there. You want to start going, what's that? What's that? What's that? Oh, no, she can't talk.
Just wait.
She just does
Yeah. Little scientists figuring out the world.
it.
So how are you feeling, Arena?
Good. Just things have shifted.
So what I want to do is bring these two in front of you. And what I want you to do when I do that, so the kids are leaning against you guys. Okay. And this is a very set kind of, this is a tableau, right? This is a format. We're in a format. But notice that you're looking at the kids, but you're also looking over the heads of the kids. There happens to be a wall here. Why don't we actually just rearrange the whole thing so you're looking out the windows? And you're stepping on Dad. That's all right. And your other kid kind of needs something over here. Okay. So you're looking at the kids, so in some ways that's very primary, but you're both also looking forward at your lives. The kids are looking at their lives. You're looking at your lives. Any of your parents that are still alive are also looking at their lives, in addition to supporting the ones in front of them. So Rita, how's that for you? Like it gives you, just like we did this,
Yeah.
we just opened the frame a little
Right.
bit.
That's
It still includes the little fish, but
like that spaciousness.
so can you say something like, my life includes this? It's not limited to this.
My life includes this. It's not limited to this.
Which is going to be good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I assume Pavel, you say the same thing. My life includes this, but it's not limited to this.
Life includes this, but it's not limited to this.
Can you say that to each other?
My life
My life
includes this, but it's not limited to this.
That usually feels good,
Mm-hmm.
because then you both have freedom. And not only do you both have freedom, but the other person then is actually wants to be there. They're not trapped in there. And no one wants people in your family who feel like we're doing a mutual trapping business on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Not good. And then your father behind you, inside of you, part of you, the father strength in your mothering. Can you just say to Pavel, there's father strength in my mothering.
There's my father's strength in my mother.
How's that feel, Pavel?
I recommend that.
You said that to her.
I can see that.
So, how is this, Lorena? What do you think?
Good.
It feels like a good
Yeah.
place to leave it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, then let us step out of the constellation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're done. 15 minutes before our end time.
Mm-hmm.
I did very, very well. There's only one thing I planned that I didn't end up having the time for. Usually there's like, I always have more in my program than I can actually do. But this is it. This is the little 2-day training for you guys. Anything you, before we do that, let's do the little ritual.
Yeah.
Why don't you start here?
Okay. My name is Jeff. I represent
My name is Leslie, and I represented Deanna and your first child, and Pavel a bit, and your father a bit, and your brother a bit. I'm Leslie.
I'm Irene. I represented myself.
Excellent. Any questions from a facilitator point of view?
Yeah. When you changed from the missing part to the father, was that because you felt moved to take that position?
Yeah. Once I stood behind her, I can't retrace my thought process precisely, but I was in a father position, and I always just notice that when people are in standardized positions. To at least ask the question. It may not be relevant. There are supportive positions that are not parental, obviously, but I'm going to ask the question. And then I remembered that the 3 areas of my attention included this thing with her father. I thought, father, what's up with father? I mean, the grandfather was really the one who had the suffering, did blah, blah, blah. And then I went, oh, the father was the one who did not properly carry the weight of parenting. That was something Irina strongly agreed with me about in the interview. So, and at that point, I did ask, I checked with Irina. I said, I think this is your dad. And I kept on checking over the next few minutes as I sort of shared what I thought was going on with her. And she was in agreement that that's what it was. And it was useful for her to see it that way, even though it was challenging at first. So that was the evolution of that. There have been you've seen it, times when I'm like, oh, this is blah, blah, blah. And then like 5 minutes, like, no, it's not blah, blah, blah. I'm a little bit transparent with my process. I think sometimes I may be a little too transparent with the group. But that's just me. I prefer to err on the side of almost like every group is, I'm inviting them into, I'm annotating a bit, and it's almost a little bit of a master class. I'm sharing my process a little bit. So that's what happened. And I was asking the question, does this represent somebody earlier than that? When I was doing that crankiness and blah, 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 I thought, is this like a twin? It's feeling like a twin thing. I mean, I started to ask the question, this is feeling like a person. So more than just and there's the Freudian phrase, introjection. There's projection, and then there's introjection when we have the inner critical voice that is our mom's voice. That's an introjection. So parts of us are parts of other people in a sense.
Yeah, that felt accurate. It's interesting. I don't remember an interview talking about my dad at all.
Yeah.
Like that. But it's from the theory point of view, when you say, I don't want to be like my father, I don't want to parent like my father, you block the flow, right? The flow.
Right.
And so you say, like, I reject that part, which is a part of me.
Exactly. It's half of you.
Yeah. And so that's felt very
Yeah. I mean, in some sense, that little joke I was making at the beginning, who put me in charge of a baby, is really, who put dad in charge of a baby? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
That's really the real question. It's not about you. You're a very good person to put a baby in the hands of. If we were in the midst of an emergency and you were in it with me and there was a baby without a parent, I'd say, here, hold the baby.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that you're a good person to handle a baby. So if that voice comes up, then it must be from somewhere else. It's an identification from something else, right? Yeah. Other questions from a facilitator point of view? You now have a bit of a model on the interview, like the world's most exhaustive kind of interview style, which you're not necessarily going to do every time. But you saw me do that flip from looking at the issue to just now I'm just going to do a family tree interview. Yeah. One question in hindsight I could and should have asked, was there any babies who died due to accidental parental mistakes of some sort or another? That would be another like obvious question to ask. Because sometimes that can be the entanglement. Someone dropped the baby or whatever. And then if there are no questions about that, 10 minutes, anything left that you want to? We looked at interviewing. We looked at actually conducting a constellation. We talked a lot about other stuff.
Can I ask you a question as a client?
Sure, I'll see if it feels like I want to let it sit and not answer it, but please, yeah.
Well, it's just when you said might be with my brother.
I didn't mean much by that. All I meant was that there was a bit more there, and I didn't want us to take it on.
Okay.
It kind of begged. It just seemed with the father and parenting and blah blah blah. It needed to come in, but there was a little bit more there than the constellation. In terms of your outcome, there's nothing about that we needed to do more with. But there seemed to be a little bit more systemically that could be tidied up if we know we had another hour and it was part of our to-do list. I'm not saying make a date with me in 6 months to deal with that.
Okay.
All I want to say is every once in a while a door opens in a constellation and you're not going to deal with it.
Okay.
And that's all I wanted to say about it. And sometimes it's in the format of, maybe down the road you're going to want to do one on this, but we're not going to tidy this up today. Because I don't want people feeling incomplete when we do, there's a door that opens and we don't actually tidy it up. Because everyone can feel it when we don't. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. You may even have been present for me, a somewhat famous constellation. It's probably about a year ago now, when we had done a good job, things were in a good place. It was feeling like it, and there was something like half the representatives just kept on opening up new doors. Like there's this other thing, and there's this other thing, and there's this other thing. And I finally just went, okay, there's something about this system. Like we're now at 9:30. We really need to bring this to a close. It's looking really good in terms of the client outcome. And there's something going on systemically in which you are now all opening new doors. And I'm just going to invite you all right now to, with a lot of respect, just close them. And they all nodded at me and they went, okay. And they just, you could feel the doors close and we were able to end. But it was like viral for a moment. I'm like, no, wait, we're all done. Stop. and the field is not, in physics, right? I remember early on the physics of systems, you have to decide what system you're looking at. Are you looking at the Earth Moon? Are you looking at the solar system? Are you looking at the galaxy? Are you looking at the local group? You have to decide which subsystem. Are you looking at an atom, a molecule, a cell, an arm, right? It's always a contrivance. Which system you're going to focus in on, the body and its aura, the body in relationship to, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing that in constellations as well. And it ends up being connected to other things that are not part of our to-do list today to attend to. And it's very hard to keep those edges tidy because it's connected. It's connected to, the only way to do a whole constellation is to do the whole universe. But then the resolution is very low, right? That's all that's about. We did was just connected to stuff that was not on our to-do list to deal with today. Except for just a tip of the hat, just a little bit of this is important. Was that okay with you, by the way? Because I could tell it touched something very tender for you, understandably.
With brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it feel like enough to you, or?
Yeah, no, yeah, it did. It did. It's just, it's like I worked on this so much, but yes.
Well, there may be nothing else to look at.
Yeah.
You may be on your deathbed and have a tear for your brother.
Yeah.
This is not inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's a terrible loss.
Yeah.
Suicide is one of those things. So, grief it never truly ends. Closure is not real, right?
Yeah.
This is why we go to funerals of acquaintances whose mothers have died and we didn't even know the mother, and we find ourselves sobbing because it kicks up our own grief.
Yeah.
You know, the old things that we have. So that's how we're made. That's why a stupid commercial can make us cry. Yeah, a stupid commercial. Or This Is Us, right?
This Is Us. I love crying.
Other constellation questions or reflections or things you want to share about what seems like next for you or next for us?
Well, I'm kind of wondering, so if we were embarked on the entire course, where would it go?
So there's sort of two tracks. There's continuing to learn what we might call the book learning, which is not all book learning. Some of it is just my observations. Like a lot of what I've taught you is just my observations over time. But what we might call the theory or content. And then there's practice. And what I would want to do is to scaffold your practice. So there was not much practice this weekend. I probably should have had a little bit more. But I had you practice interviewing. I had you do the opening. There would be more mini constellations, which is a really nice way. It's without being called a facilitator. Many groups are facilitating themselves, so you're exercising those facilitator muscles a little bit. Little pieces of work. It would probably be a few months for people who are really from new before they're actually constellating a full constellation, but I would want to get them there, constellating each other's, little bits of things, like do a little money piece with her, just a little thing, her and money, and help her out with that to more full-fledged constellations and with a lot of support. The plan also, the advanced group includes this, is that there'd be a study group, which means that a couple of times a month you'd get together online and or live to practice with each other without me watching, which I found really important for people's learning, to be able to practice in a safe environment without the trainer watching. They tend to do much better work when I'm not around watching.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's generally the case. The self-consciousness drops. And I just want to be really comprehensive. Client care, how to deal with people when you're concerned that you might have more than you can handle. Just a little bit around clinical issues, so that you're not taking on things you shouldn't take on as not a mental health expert. Ethical issues, things like this is what I would get into. There's something that we didn't get into at all. Well, we got into it a little bit when I talked about it's your stance that determines how much people think this is dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot more I have to say about facilitator stance and how you hold this. And then, of course, you're getting your own constellation. So this is, in a sense, is the third track, which is you're getting your own work done and your own healing and growth, so that can feed into being a good facilitator. Yeah. So that we're whittling away as much as possible at our own blind spots. Yeah. So that's how it would kind of go. And we would end up like playing with different formats, maybe some nature constellation work, some organizational constellation work to get exposed to that. At some point, I would want to play with you around silent constellations, which we did with the advanced group, and we had a lot of fun with that. So working with different formats is also really useful.
About nature, you do them, right?
I do.
Yeah.
There's one coming up next weekend.
Yeah.
You want to come?
Can do that one, but eventually I would want to try it out.
I do them right up in the hills.
Tilden, yeah.
Tilden.
How do you, and what's different about them other than being
there's a lot of stuff that's different. The basic format's the same. I mean, it really is. But it's a mix of many, because it's a workshop. Generally, people aren't getting their own full constellations done. It's a bunch of mini constellations throughout the day. We might do this as another format, social issues constellations. Like we did a really cool one on nature, man, woman, and kind of the division between them and nature. It was kind of fun. Yeah, so working with archetypes and stuff like that. That's kind of what the format looks like. The main thing I say that's different about working in nature, and then we do nature themed stuff, like I'll have you and your spirit animal, that kind of thing, just for fun. And then the thing I find that's mostly different about working in nature is that nature, the tree falls and no one goes to therapy. There really isn't trauma in nature, or very little. And so people can borrow the self-rapport of nature, and instead of having to change things, there are two things that go in constellations. One is we change things, and the other is we accept how things are without them being changed. Something shifts in us and how we are present to what is. And then the nature constellations tend to be more in this space. So yeah, people tend to leave in much better self-rapport with themselves than they came in with. It's just lighter. There's a little bit of the less sort of drama. Me and my woes. So that's some of the things. It's just really, it turns out to be really nice to do it under trees outside. It's just a nice place to do it. For most people. For some people, it's like, it's buggy and it's hot. But for people who like nature, it tends to be a really satisfying way to do it. So I'm curious, you guys shared a little bit on Wednesday. Like I said, tomorrow, one of my jobs is to sit down and really think through, what's my offering this fall going to look like? How do I rethink making this offer? But if there were no limits, or it was the way you wanted it to be, or what you might like given the limits as you know them, what would you ask for from me and for your learning? You already talked a little bit about wanting maybe a supervision group or something.
Yeah, I just feeling like I got a good, and I read books before too, and this was like a good crash course in theory, and I would need to practice a little bit more just to get more questions, because of the theory, you're like, yeah, clear, and then you practice.
Then you run into the real world.
Yeah. Like, so we need to do like a practice, and then kind of going back and forth. So we need to practice a little, and then go back to you and be like, oh, okay, I practice, and this is what I ran into.
That's basically what the training is supposed to be, in a certain way. Yeah. The advanced group in the winter may be a good fit for you.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Because you've been exposed to this stuff more.
Right.
A little bit more.
Or even I could, I could try, I was thinking like Amy wanted to do a group. I could try to see like Tatiana maybe interested in practicing more, like get it on its side, and then come back to you once. Then I need to integrate you in the group. If it's just, that's what I was thinking. Like if we get together, we're like, okay, can we hire Leslie for this weekend as we practice, and she watches us, and so something, I don't know, just like ideas in my head.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned people don't want to pay for supervision, and it's interesting because I would think that they would want to, like I would want to, like if I'm starting, I would want you to see my work and give me feedback.
Right, right. There's something about people pull out their checkbooks for trainings
I see.
versus, and
Yeah,
training has a lot of my advanced
Right,
training
yeah.
really is kind of supervision in
Yeah.
a way.
Right.
Although I do, a part of it is throwing out advanced concepts.
Okay, then maybe that would be.
So, and Amy would be a very good fit for the advanced group as well.
Okay.
Tatiana's already done it once, but there's no reason not to do it.
How many
Repeat it.
people you had with last?
I had 7 people last time.
Yeah.
My minimum is 5. I think my maximum would be 12.
Sounds good.
So, Jeff, what about you?
Well, I guess what you outlined seemed like a pretty reasonable process.
Mm-hmm.
Can't think of anything I'd add to it. I would like, it would be nice if there was a practice group.
Mm-hmm.
My experience is that kind of thing is you find yourself with a problem you don't know how to answer, and then it'd be nice if you have someone, have you know, say, well, this happened, I didn't know where to go or something.
Mm-hmm.
What might I look at? I don't know if you can do that without having seen it, but
I sometimes do that for people. They'll just sort of reach out to me and ask those kinds of questions, and I do my best to kind of imagine what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had a little bit of that in the course with, I think, was it Amy or somebody else? Lisa, maybe more? I don't remember. But somebody would say, I did this constellation for somebody, and this and this happened, and I would,
that happened a few times.
Yeah. The other thing, by the way, for the basic course, I include as much psychological material as I think people kind of really need to have under the belts in order to be able to do this responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
So I include the attachment theory and trauma theory, which are the big pieces these days that are just important for people to kind of have that material somewhat solidly available. As well as some other psychological stuff that's kind of basic.
Yeah. Seemed like your training was good, and you're the only person in the Bay Area who's offering it, not including Marine, like in this area. So
right.
I don't know why people are not signing up.
I clearly have not found the right market yet.
Yeah.
I mean, for whatever reason. I mean, I had 3 people. I was 3/5 of the way there.
Yeah.
I needed 5. And I was willing to do it with you 3, but then Larissa backed out.
Yeah.
So, and at that point I went, I think the systems are telling me I need to, the systemics are telling me, step back, take a look, ask some questions about this.
Yeah. Did you constellate it?
I've been constellating it all the way through because, of course, we already had the postponement.
Oh, I see.
So I constellated that out as well. But the thing I keep on saying is that there's no prophesying in constellations. It doesn't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You're still left with deciding what to do. And it can be impressionistic as well. The problem with constellation, that's the other thing I just really want to warn you about. That came up here. Where did it come up? I don't remember. But really beware of always literalizing constellations. It can be reasonable to do it because constellations can be so spectacularly literal. I'll never forget the time I was doing a constellation for someone. It's a little organizational thing in which he was trying to balance doing NLP, Tai Chi, or web design or something, like which career should I go into or whatever. So I just set up a representative for each one of those careers. And the person, and it was blind, okay? So no one knew what role they were. And the one for Tai Chi just kind of kept going, I don't know why, but I just kind of like to do this with my body. It just feels good. I'm not sure why. You know, like, oh my God, constellations can be so specific and so literal that we can be tempted to do that. But we have to be careful because we're not literal. Human beings are symbolic, right? And meanings can get really, really metaphorical. So I'm just going to give you a really good example personally. And I'm going to put this on pause because it's my business, which I do on a regular basis by myself. It is 10 after 4. You've talked about needing to go. Any last things to kind of wrap things up? I'm so glad you took me up on this, and I was able to. I really wanted to reward you guys for your persistence and your loyalty and your interest, and leave you feeling good, so that even though I had to refund most of your money, like you felt you got a really good deal, and that you'd be inclined to come back when I refashion a new offer that hopefully is more in alignment with what other people also want, so that we have the critical mass to do something. Yeah.
Feeling good and hungry for more.
Perfect. We'll do something tomorrow. No. We'll sleep tomorrow. We'll sleep in tomorrow. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you came. And I'm sorry the third didn't, but I think she had already postponed one once, and I think she was kind of ready to move on, which I understand as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will end the recording, and I will send these to